Well, we have the privilege to visit right now with a father and son duo who recently pooled their expertise and creativity in writing this book, The Art of Being You, How to Live as God's Masterpiece. Bob and Joel Kilpatrick, great to have you here. Welcome.
Thanks very much.
Now, Bob, you're no stranger to 100 Huntley Street.
No.
Been here through the years?
I have, yeah. I've had the privilege. I was here just last year and then co-hosted several times with David, your dad, and with Jim Cantillon and Moira. And then, you know what's really cool is about 20 years ago, I had the privilege of bringing Joel with me. We did, Jim Cantillon was doing a week of emphasis on young leaders or young people who are leading in their faith. And I said, well, why don't you have Joel come up with me for one of the programs? And so his son was on and Joel was on.
All right.
Great pleasure.
Many memories of that, Joel?
I'd still like to consider myself a young leader.
Okay.
So,
all right, we'll do that.
20 years later.
Yeah, wouldn't we all? Yes.
I was his age when we came up together. So I was 20 years younger and he was 20 years younger as well.
And Bob, you are also doing a lot of music on 100 Huntley Street. Many would remember that because you've written a lot of worship songs that are still sung in churches. Ones like "In My Life, Lord Be Glorified," and "Here I Am, Send Me to the Nations." Some great songs.
That was written in Hamilton, by the way. "Here Am I, Send Me to the Nations."
Really?
Yeah, written in 1986 for a big youth convention that was going on there, and
Neat.
I wrote it right here. So it has Canadian roots.
Well, we know you have at least one son. Tell us about your family.
Well, Joel is the oldest, and then I've got 3 other sons besides that. And then the youngest child is a daughter, so we have 4 sons and a daughter. And then they are all breeding. So we have this new generation, 13 little Kilpatricks, and number 14, my daughter is pregnant for the first time.
Wow.
So number 14 is coming in April.
That's great.
So we have a legacy of godliness that we have tried to pass down to our kids, and they are in turn passing to their kids as well. And
fantastic.
Very happy about that.
Now, Joel, one of the things that you do besides writing some books, but you have a website you've developed called larknews.com, which is kind of a religious satire website. So you're going to have to explain that. What's that all about?
Well, that's a dangerous thing to do, isn't it? Religious satire. But I started it as a hobby. I've been reporting and writing for a long time. And, you know, you build up ideas, and our family sense of humor is to sort of make, you know, satirical fun of everything that we get involved with, but we don't often let that humor out of the house. So I decided to go ahead and make some fake news stories. And put it on a website, and it just exploded in popularity. People were writing, a lot of people from Canada. Canadians have a great sense of humor. Canadian Christians.
Our sense of humor.
Yeah, real dry. And so the site just became very popular very quickly, and I got a couple of books out of it.
And you won a Dove Award for humor and things like that?
Yeah, and you were featured in Time Magazine, the Washington Post, and Charles Osgood.
He likes to brag.
But yeah, why not?
There was a lot that happened as a result of it. And I realized people were very hungry for that sort of, to look at themselves through a humorous lens, you know, which is, you can feel almost that maybe you shouldn't do that, you know, when you're a Christian, that everything should be perfect and all that. And so the purpose of the site was to make fun of ourselves in a loving way. But also a way that was still sharp and I would hope insightful, and people have really enjoyed it.
Right. No, you got to laugh at yourself sometimes.
Yeah, you take God seriously and laugh at everything else.
And I love the title of another book project that you've had called A Field Guide to Evangelicals and Their Habitat. So I'll have to pick up that someday.
It tells you, everything, where they live, how they dress.
You have your binoculars, you're watching the evangelicals in their habitat.
Okay, now to the other book where why we really have you here today. I love this. I've been poring over it the last while. The Art of Being You and How to Live as God's Masterpiece. And Bob, maybe we'll start with you. First of all, what was it like to work with your son on a book project?
Well, you know, some people around us didn't think it was going to work. In fact, they said, "Are you sure about this? Because you might need counseling afterwards." I didn't need counseling. In fact, I think it's been at least one of the top 3 most enriching experiences of my life. Because Joel has an incredible intellect, but that coupled with this deep love for the things of God and an understanding of what God is doing in our lives, which, you know, the premise of the book is simply this, that we tend to approach life kind of from the math point of view, that we're thinking that God is adding up our debit credit column, trying to balance things out, and if we do a nickel's worth of sin, he's going to throw us a nickel's worth of grace, sort of zeroing out all the time, you know. we tend to approach God as the great mathematician or the great repairman. He's just trying to fix the faulty carburetor on our broken down lives. But in reality, the Bible gives a clearer picture. It doesn't even give that picture at all. The picture it gives is the picture of an artist, a God who is like a potter with the clay, who's trying to make something beautiful and good out of our lives. And the idea of art just completely obliterates the math paradigm or the mechanic paradigm. And that's what the book is about, to help people get rid of this idea that God is making a list and checking it twice and gonna find out who's naughty or nice, you know. Instead, to lead them into the understanding that God has something very beautiful and very good in mind for you. That's His plan.
And I think most Christians would fall into the category of thinking, yeah, well, God is there just to fix my problems, isn't He? And be that mechanic, and that looks at it like math, as you're saying. In fact, one of your chapters is math versus art.
Yeah.
And you see him, and you use one analogy of it. We see him sometimes like the Wizard of Oz.
Yeah.
Like, I've got this deficiency, God, would you help me? And so what is it we need to really grasp, Joel, when we're thinking wrongly like that?
Well, how you approach God is going to depend how you see your own life and how you see what He's doing in your life. So if you see Him through the lens of your greatest weakness, then your overriding impression of God is your desire will be that He is to meet that weakness all the time. If you're lonely, you want Him to be a friend. If you've been hurt, you want Him to be your healer, and on and on. We're trying to say that apart from any need that you have, and God does meet your needs and all of our needs in a wonderful way, but apart from that, what is the character of God, and what does that say about what He's doing in our lives? And we say that God presents Himself in the Bible as an artist, the very first verb. In the beginning, God created. And all the way throughout the other 65 books of the Bible, we see God through this as an artist, someone who's creating in us some sort of eternal beauty that will one day be on eternal display in heaven. And we say in the book that we're not anti-math. Math is what God used to create the universe, the physical properties, our bodies. It's all intricately made and woven, and the architecture of the physical universe. That's math. But when you get into our soul, your spirit, our aspirations, our love, that's God's art. And He is preparing us for the greatest art show that any of us will ever know.
Ephesians 2, that in the ages to come He might show off the extravagant riches of His grace toward us in Christ Jesus. We've had this separation in the word grace. We've had it become something that speaks of beauty and charm, and something that speaks of favor, generosity. And I would just like to bring those back together again and see, David talks about the beauty of holiness. And in the book I write, beauty and holiness? I mean, what kind of beauty is there in holiness? That always sounded to me like a bad haircut and a nil-fitting suit and a great big Bible and a scowl. Yeah. That was what holiness was. Yeah. Those are the holy ones. They're looking really mean and fierce and condemning everybody. But there is a beauty in holiness, and that's where that grace comes together, the favor and the generosity of God and the art of God. It comes together in art. That in the ages to come He might show off.
In 2 Corinthians 5:17 that you quote in the book, that we're a new creation. If anyone is in Christ, he is a new creation. So it's a creative process that God has us each on, isn't it?
Yeah, see, some people think that Christianity is one more self-help program with Jesus thrown in. So it's like you are sort of required to make yourself a better person. 7 days to a new you, 10 steps to a better you, 31 days to a really cool you.